for our last session of the day. I'm super excited to end our day on this note. I'm really happy to introduce Ryan McCauley and Allison Stout from the Fuller Creative Learning Center here in East Providence, Rhode Island. They are incredibly unique in the work that they do. I don't want to give too much away. I want them to talk about their work. But it's very exciting. I'm very excited to have them here. It's such a great way to wrap up our day. And Ryan and Allison, I'll pass it on to you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for that. So let me go ahead and share my screen if I may. All right. So my name is Ryan McCauley, and I am the coordinator of the Fuller Creative Learning Center. Also here today is Allison Stout, the assistant coordinator of the Fuller Creative Learning Center. Like Danielle said, we are definitely a unique place. We are not a traditional branch of the East Providence Public Library. We are an extension of the East Providence Public Library. So in this photo, you can see the big sign right there with our building. The parking lot is to the right. It's not a huge parking lot, but it used to be a lending library. So I should say that years ago, it was very traditional. It got closed down in 2008. And about 6.5 years ago, it reopened as a learning center. So I'm going to get ahead of myself here, but I'm going to explain why we are unique. So our mission statement is inspiring curiosity through participatory learning and community engagement. And we were asked to—
Ryan, I'm sorry, may I interrupt you 1 second? It looks like we can't see your screen. It says loading.
I'm not sure why.
Maybe try to unshare and then reshare it again. There we go.
Is that good?
It might not like the slideshow feature.
Oh, no.
Because I think it's like when you hit slideshow, that's when it goes blank.
Okay, well, let's see.
So feel free to keep it in. Yeah, there we go.
We'll do that.
Thanks,
All right,
Ryan.
sorry about that.
No problem.
All right. So once again, we are not a traditional library, but we have a lot of different services. Just getting out of the chat on my screen. There we go. So once again, my name is Ryan McCauley. I am the coordinator. Allison Stout, the assistant coordinator, is also here. We are the 2 full-time staff members there. Right now, we are also waiting to hire a part-time, hopefully down the road, another part-time employee to be totally fully staffed. And before I get into how we really connect with the community and the types of events that we do, I just wanted to go over some of the services that we offer. So some of these are actually really new, but this is the list of the most popular. We have a 3D printer, brand new 3D printer pens, a recording studio, 10 public sewing machines, 4 virtual reality headsets. Oh, sorry about that. Public computers and Wi-Fi, and our community garden. I'm going to talk more about a couple of these, especially the community garden, later on in this presentation. But the meat and potatoes of this presentation is how do we connect to the community? The short answer is it can vary. I think the most popular way that we really connect is we make valiant efforts to try and actually engage verbally with the patrons that come in. We talk to patrons at the other locations, but especially the patrons that come into our events and programs. We make a point to talk to them and make them feel comfortable to talk to us, for better or worse, whether they really liked the program or maybe they thought if we changed this aspect, it could have been better. I know I take pride in making patrons feel comfortable or trying my best to, so that we get authentic feedback that way. A lot of times patrons just volunteer. We don't even have to engage. They come up to us and they will actually offer, I see you do X, Y, and Z here. I've been doing insert skill for 25 years. Would you want me to share that at the Fuller Center? So a lot of what we do is actually born that way. And I'll be giving examples throughout this presentation, of course. And a lot of times we have to get creative with what we have to offer. Going back to some of the things on the list I just mentioned, we have 10 public sewing machines. So I'm going to list a few examples of what we can do with that. And we get really creative and try and fill the gaps in people's lives that I don't want to say they didn't know they needed, but we have to really dig deep and think of what would people want and need. And a few examples of that actually, something that was very popular, how to tie a necktie. Just a basic skill like that. And it took off like wildfire, especially on the library's Facebook. Something that you can't get everywhere else. And then of course, we also coordinate with the other locations in East Providence, which would be Weaver Library and Riverside Library. And we tailor some of our programs and events to what is happening elsewhere. So one example I included here is that in April, we're focusing on Rhode Island themed programs and events. So there's a lot happening at Weaver and Riverside. So we're on board, of course. And what we're going to do is a Johnny Cake cooking demo. For those of you who don't know, that's a Rhode Island thing. If you don't know what a Johnny Cake is, it's like a corn muffin and a pancake combined. It's a Rhode Island thing. But we have access to a fully equipped kitchen as well. And we won a grant for the Charlie Cart, which is a kitchen on wheels. So we're able to do things like that, which helps fill those gaps that maybe a traditional library is unable to do. So one example, going back to the sewing machines, right now we have a block of the month program. And what that is, we had people, and again, this is paying attention to our patrons and what they're saying and how programs unfold. A lot of our sewing programs will fill up quickly, which is a great problem to have, nevertheless a problem. So what we did was actually create 2 different sessions. And the block of the month is where they meet once a month and make one 12 by 12 square. And then after 12 months, they have their own quilt. So a lot of what we have to offer, we do have to pay attention to and adapt. Again, a good problem to have, but we had hit a point, especially before COVID, where a lot of our things would fill up. So we had to look at how we ran and actually kind of restructure it and say, all right, can we offer 2 sessions? What would that look like? What would the registration process look like? Same thing with, actually, before I get into that, other sewing programs that we do. And Allison, I always say Allison's the sewing whiz. The sewing basics classes, a hand sewing class for kids, and even just a sewing machine 101 to get people feel comfortable. I think that in itself is something that Allison and I keep in mind when we're creating a calendar of events is, what do people need a little push for in their life? And a lot of people have a sewing machine or access to a sewing machine. They've always wanted to do something. And we do a lot of quote unquote 101 classes to give them that nudge and basically encourage people to take up that skill that they've always wanted to do. That's one of my favorite things about my job, is giving people that little push and encouragement that they definitely need. You can see that unfold as they come into our branch. And then recently, we're very excited about this. Allison and I handpicked a group of patrons that we know have been coming to the Fuller Creative Learning Center for years, that give us feedback, that know us personally and know how we operate. And what we did was establish a steering committee. So what we're going to do is have a kickoff meeting and then meet quarterly. And all that is just to have a designated time to talk to patrons, for better or worse, open, true dialogue. What would you like to see happen at Fuller? And of course, we can't guarantee that, but we're only a couple people, right? So we love ideas. We make people feel comfortable with giving us ideas and recommendations. A big portion of what we do is built around that. And that's authentic feedback in itself. So this steering committee is just going to be, an hour and a half of hand-selected patrons that will give us, again, for better or worse, real authentic feedback on, what they want to see happen at Fuller. So there we go. Currently, I mentioned this in the very beginning, we're really excited about our community garden initiative. About 4 or 5 years ago, we won a grant and I contacted the city. I'm very fortunate. The city supports our library system in a big way. And I said, if I can give you the money, would you build us a bunch of raised beds? And they did. So we do a lot of course, growing, but we cook with what we grow as well. So like a farm to table program that patrons, and I should emphasize both kids and adults alike, absolutely love. So we may do, whether it's a cooking demo or even something like a kitchen knife 101 class, where you properly learn to hold a kitchen knife and actually use it correctly. And there is a correct way to do it. And we'll go out, pick herbs, spices, vegetables, bring them in and use that. So people are learning on multiple ends in just one program. And we recently got contacted by the East Providence Health Equity Zone, and they actually have grant money that they wanted to work with us and use to help us expand that. And one area of that I'm most excited is to have a handicap accessible raised bed that we actually don't have right now. So we're looking to use that money, and it's very likely the city's working with us again, which is great. But these are just some of the ways that things are born here at Fuller. And then coming up next, I have a couple pictures just to show some programs in action happening at Fuller, just to give you a better sense. I should say how we are structured is we have one major room, which is a very good sized room. I don't know the dimensions off the top of my head, but we have a projector and then tables and chairs on wheels. So Allison and I transform that building multiple times a day, whether it's cooking and we have to transform it into an actual classroom. And then later on, it's a different type of event where we need tables along the walls, like sewing classes. It's important to know that Fuller keeps changing in that capacity. And we have a smaller room at the other end, which is basically the same thing. We transform that as well, but it's just smaller in size. And that doesn't account for our kitchen as well. So here are some pictures. So this is actually new. About 2 or 3 months old, we started doing an All Abilities monthly program, which has been great for adults with developmental disabilities. And anyone can join, but it's just something for anyone. All Abilities can come do. And you can see the projector right in the back there. And we put the tables in a U form so everyone can see the projector. And as I show you more pictures, you're going to see how it kind of transforms. So this is that smaller room, also with the projector right there. And then we have everyone working on their block of the month. This is in our kitchen. So this is a cooking class. This is a nearby chef, has been making Chinese food her whole life. And we got her to come in and make an authentic Chinese dish that she grew up with in Hong Kong. And people absolutely love it. And that's another really fun part of our job, is to see people that they may even come to Fuller more than once in a day, and they kind of shake their head in disbelief and say, I don't know where else I would learn how to sew. I could record a song or a podcast. and then learn how to cook all in the same day. So we try and cover all those bases, and we do. This is just our annual Halloween costume parade, but I included this. I know this is outside, but I thought this would be important to show because, when we have something like this, that we work with other departments and the city itself to make this happen, we will actually try and add on and offer what Fuller is best at and say, okay, you can come here earlier and get ready for your costume and make a costume if you want, and use the resources we have to build on a program happening. And this is an adult paint class, and you can see the tables in a totally different way. A community Earth Day cleanup. So kind of the same thing with the Halloween parade. We will kind of make other programs in addition to this. We try and focus on the hands-on learning, sharing a skill set. So something like this, we would do something before or after to kind of showcase what Fuller does. But that was a really big success. This was another success. The robotics class for kids last summer. And this was another one that filled up. But here's a closer look at the different robotics. So kids worked in teams, and we helped them. We gave them the tools necessary through kits, and let them make the robots that walked on their own. And then we actually had them race, which was really fun. Here's the community garden. And that's one of the 3 that we currently have. We're hoping to have at least 2 more. And then the Youth Fashion Creation Series. So we got a woman named Candace French, who was wonderful, to come in, and she's been working in fashion her whole life. She actually works currently at the Rhode Island School of Design. And this was a good example of how we tailored and worked with other branches, where at Weaver years ago, she did a talk, just a presentation about fashion for adults. And we said, okay, well, why don't we even promote that in itself and have her come here and do the hands-on workshop where they make something. So, we had one flyer, cross-branch collaboration, where you could go to the presentation and the hands-on activity taught by the same person. These are some examples of the 3D print requests that patrons asked for. And then this is just a monthly paint night. You can see the video on the projector. And then Bob Horton from Brown University showing off some meteorites, telescopes that he has built, bringing in some telescopes that he's actually built himself. And one program a couple of years ago, we actually observed Saturn and Jupiter from our parking lot. So we had about 40 people, and we all went out and observed Saturn and Jupiter through the telescope. And just a tidbit about some of these people and individuals that we brought in. Typically how we handle that, it's always good business to do business with the library, right? But, Allison and I will tell people, we will promote like crazy. If you give us an hour and a half of your time, we help get your name out there. If we promote on Facebook, on our website, we make flyers, the local papers. So, we've established a lot of good relationships that way. And this is an example of the Kitchen Basics 101 class, where it was for all ages, and you can see kids and adults, and they're just chopping carrots and I think it's celery. But we watched a video and practice how to hold a kitchen knife correctly and cut correctly. So each and every day, we really do have a blast sharing these experiences, skill sets, memories, with kids of all ages, teens, adults of all ages. I have personally been there almost 7 years now. I came from the Johnston Library in, I think it's 2016. But I've been working with this community since, and it's been nothing but a pleasure. I don't know. My next slide is going to be about questions. Allison, did I forget any? Oh, there you are. Okay, I see you on the right. Anything that you want to add or that maybe I forgot? Or should we just open it up to questions?
I would say the only thing that I would add is the Halloween costume parade we do with the Kent Heights Neighborhood Association. So they do the costume parade, they set up, they say, oh, we're going to meet at Fuller. And we just sort of build off of that. But other than that.
Thank you. That's exactly right. And it's a good example of how Allison and I work with other city departments, the Kent Heights Neighborhood Association, EP Urban Forest, which is a nonprofit. So, we try and tap into anyone and everyone around us if they can offer something to our community. Allison and I pay attention to whether it was a hit. I definitely think most of the time it is. And I think our community, through feedback, emails, mouth to mouth, they've been clear that they appreciate a place like this that is full of resources where they can learn things that they wouldn't be able to normally learn elsewhere. But with that being said, I know we're a unique place and we have a couple minutes left. So if anyone has questions, please, by all means, you can unmute or type them in the chat.
We have one question in the chat. Are programs free, Ryan?
Yes, yep, I just pulled that up now. Perfect. Oh, and somebody else had a telescope night. Awesome. Yes, all our programs are free. The one thing that once in a blue moon, Allison and I will ask is something like every year we do a pumpkin carving program, and we actually have an expert that comes in. He absolutely loves it, and he teaches people how to carve a pumpkin. And something like that, we'll say, bring your own pumpkin, medium to large size. Even sewing, we've had so much fabric donated. Allison could tell you, if anyone needs fabric, we'll mail you some because we have.
Please
so
take
much.
it.
Yeah. Which again, great problem to have. But if somebody wants their own fabric, they can bring it. But as far as charging people, no, we don't charge people. Binoculars, you're so lucky to have a space. We really are. I can't emphasize how grateful we are that the city does support a place like this because not many exist. It takes some explaining because people don't automatically get what Fuller is at first glance. But when they see it, we see that light bulb go off and they realize the potential and all the resources that they can tap into in one building. But yeah, I'm just making sure there are no more questions.
Ryan and Allison, I'm wondering what recommendations you might have for libraries who don't have the space. How might they go about maybe not doing the same that Fuller is doing, but sort of the spirit of Fuller, how other libraries might sort of replicate this idea of fulfilling like a very particular community needs, like you said, how to handle a knife, how to tie a tie. Yeah, just wonder if you have recommendations.
The first thing off the top of my head is try and collaborate within your city or town with other departments that maybe do have space. Create a big outreach initiative that, I know staffing is an issue for so many, but if you have a vacant room at your local senior center or rec center, or even city hall, again, it's good business to do business with the library and to create and establish a system where you could send a librarian or two or, any staff to go do a program elsewhere. That gains traction. People are inherently curious. And I think Allison and I find that firsthand every day. And that's a good thing. And we tap into that. So when people are inherently curious, when they see the library at another location, they want to know why. Oh, what are you doing here? And there's kind of no better way to, get your name out there. Yeah.
I would say it's also worth, and this feels so simplistic, but just talk to your patrons constantly, all the time, always. We have patrons come up to us all the time. They're like, "Hey, are you guys gonna do a writing class?" And I was like, "Well, we weren't gonna, but now we are." So that kind of stuff. They'll tell you what they want.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's I said that in the very beginning. Allison's absolutely correct. And it takes we make that effort where they feel comfortable because somebody makes this is actually a true story. Somebody said to Allison, why don't you do hand sewing for kids? And Allison sat down, and it's not just like, oh, okay, we take it a step further. So what would you want that to look like? What age group are you thinking? And we ask those important questions, and it makes them feel involved. And I've seen Allison just did that recently with hand sewing. Lo and behold, we had a 3-week hand sewing class for kids. It was packed, everyone loved it, and it was brilliant. Let me check the chat, make sure there are no.
Everybody wants your fabric.
Oh, by all means.
I was gonna say, even though, so to let everybody else know that's around, like I'm in the same state as Brian and Allison, and I will tell you this: Rhode Islanders don't go farther than a half an hour. And so I could like recreate the same programs as they're doing and get completely different population, because there's no way people are going over bridges. It's not happening. And what I would do to do some of the things that you're doing is I would just go, I would contact people in my community who are doing some of the things that they're doing. Because we don't have Fuller. I do have a meeting room and I have a computer museum right up the road. And I just grabbed Dan from the computer museum. And I'm like, hey, I want a 3D printer for like a week, and I'll just borrow the 3D printer. Or I have, I want to do a green screen program, and they'll come in and do a green screen program. So there are things around you that if you've got even a small space, utilize them, because Fuller's great. They're awesome. I've been up there, but I can tell you, patrons in my area of the state, we are the tiniest state. They're not going up there. Love you guys, but you know this. You know how Rhode Islanders are.
Yeah, that Rhode Island mentality definitely exists. I will say I'm grateful. I do know for a fact people do come from other cities and towns to come to some of our programs. The vast majority is East Providence, of course. But we have heard enough where it caught my attention coming from Providence. I remember there was one that came from Gloucester, which is a 25-30 minute ride away.
They must have packed a lunch.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But and that does exist. And one thing I think to our advantage at Fuller, our location, because we are directly smack dab in between Riverside and Weaver, the two traditional libraries. And Allison and I can tell you, it's kind of funny. It's an ongoing joke. People will say, oh, well, I don't go all the way to Weaver. I'll come to here in Riverside, but I don't go to, Weaver, which is 4 minutes down the road, and vice versa. So I think we're just close enough to each one where we, get that core crew. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Anyone else?
There was one more I saw that was interesting about small teen attendance. And I know that this is a topic that comes up whenever we have any sessions. It's about teens.
Yeah. Yeah, we are actually, and I give full credit to Allison, who has brought a new light to focusing on teen programs. And that's actually on our pretty much tier 1 of priorities right now. Hence the virtual reality headsets and 3D printer pens and the 3D printer itself. And we're hoping that those things can attract teens to come in. And we've worked closely with our new teen librarian at East Providence Public Library. So we're forming that relationship now, and we're working together to make that a priority. It already is at the other locations, but now at Fuller with, the VR headsets and whatnot.
We're also starting to do, and we've got one scheduled for next month, community service. The teen librarian at the other branches has very good attendance for her regular, I think she does a weekly community service for kids who need community service to graduate. And she gets pretty good, consistent attendance of teens. And so one of the things that we're doing next month is we're going to have teens come and get community service hours by helping us set up our raised beds for the season. And anything to get them in the door the first time, they're much more likely to come back.
I'm sorry, what are you having the teens do for their community service hours?
So they're going to help us start our raised beds for the season for our garden. So they're going to pull out weeds and what's the word I want? Aerate the dirt, I suppose, and plant some things and get that going.
That's cool.
And then I see a question. Have you done any virtual cooking classes? So yes, we have, not in the past year or so, but definitely during COVID, when everything was remote. We have, and we will still do virtual things. It depends. Some things are easier than others. Virtual cooking was kind of tricky, just in terms of moving the camera around. It's possible, but it's very involved. But I do want to actually offer that point. Another example of what Fuller does when COVID hit and everything was remote. Obviously we did virtual programs and we had to switch everything to Zoom, and our attendance was abysmal. No one was showing up. And we said, there's a bigger issue here. Long story short, we started running 2-3 times a week Zoom programs. How to work Zoom, how to tune into Zoom library programs. And we had north of 50 people at some of those. And by kind of holding their hand and walking people through how to access Zoom and attend a Zoom program, numbers skyrocketed. So that's another example of what we try and focus on, where Allison and I's heads are at in thinking about our community. Well, why? There should be 10 people here, 15, 20 people here. And then looking at the bigger picture and connecting the dots. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I suppose I'll do a last call for questions. Unmute. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate being here today and sharing what Fuller does. Again, like Danielle said, we certainly are a unique space. Allison and I work hard to connect with our community and instill trust in our community. And I think we do that. So thank you for letting us share what we do.
Thank you so much, Ryan and Allison.
Well, I guess with that, just thank you everyone for coming. Our third annual New England Summer Summit. Just a reminder to everyone, give us about 7 to 10-ish business days to get all of these recordings set. We have to download them and then re-upload them, and we turn the captions on within YouTube and things like that. So the recordings are going to come. Just give us a little bit of time for that. We're really going to ask that folks fill out. Yeah, thank you, Danielle. Fill out the evaluation survey. We hold a completely separate meeting after these events are over to go through the evaluation surveys to make sure that we can provide the best services that we can going forward. We really do make decisions about what sessions to bring in and sort of what activities to do based off of what y'all tell us you need. So I like to say in Connecticut, help us help you, or we'll just make some stuff up. So yep, I put my email in here. But this was great. Did anyone else have, oh, and don't forget the Padlet lives. Thank you, Jonathan, for creating that. That is a living document. Continue to add ideas from your summer programming to it as you do things over the summer. Feel free to add things to it. If you are in a bit of a summer rut, go in there and like grab some idea from somebody else. If anyone missed any sessions today, don't worry about it. Those recordings are coming. Again, give us about 7 to 10 business days. Did anyone else want to add anything from any of the other libraries?
I have a question. It's I don't know, it's kind of random. Someone came into our library. We have a tiny library. I live in Vermont in a small rural town. And asked about borrowing a pass for the New England Aquarium. They said some other library nearby us had one. Do you know about how to get those, or how would who would I talk to?
I don't know.
Massachusetts, right?
Is that, yeah,
No?
I'm not sure.
I know different states handle this differently. Our states have a lot of passes. Like I feel like almost every library has at least a pass to somewhere. I know a lot of folks, their friends of the library groups will purchase things for them, but a lot of these are purchased. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So sometimes if the library has additional funding, they'll do that. Or things will be donated depending on your state. I know our state lends state park and forest passes. Anyone with the Connecticut license plate will get in the state parks for free, but anyone else outside of them would have to pay, or they could borrow a pass, or someone could have a pass or something like that. So that's different state by state.
Yeah, sorry. Did you see in the chat, Laura? The Townsend Library has them, and they can connect with you about how to.
Oh, they can. Okay, that was the other library. Okay, thank you.
Your emails in the chats. So that y'all can
love it. Yeah.
Oftentimes I think starting with like whoever the museum or place you want to go, whoever their membership person is a good first stop. If there's anybody else that you're sort of curious about, they should have, if they do a library pass, they would be usually the ones to talk to, but definitely connect with your fellow library first.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have any questions, or did any other consultant wanna think? Oh, Wendy, I think I saw Wendy from Barrington unmute.
I did. Hi. I just wanted to share what our library does for our library pass program. Our friends group does sponsor it, and what they do is a reimbursement program. They put aside $700 a year. We're a small library, but they put aside $700 a year, and our patrons can, if they go to any museum in New England, they can bring their receipt into us, fill out the form, we submit it to the Friends, and the Friends will reimburse them up to $25 once per year per family. So it gives them an opportunity. They also sponsor a couple of our smaller local children's museums and a garden place that you can do. We have they sponsor those other small programs, but we know that the aquarium and the science museum are so expensive that it really works well for our library. So that's something you could even bring to your friends group if you're struggling and wanting to know another way to do it.
Thank you, Wendy. That's great. I think the like discount for the Mystic Aquarium is like by $4, and that's not even the gas to get on the highway. So a program like that sounds really awesome. Is anybody else going to share? Oh my God, we got like 4 screens of people. Okay, well, yes, please fill out our evaluations and communicate with us. There's sections, open-ended sections to give us a bit of insight on what it is that you'd like to know.